I stepped forward without hesitation, no tears, no relief, just the dull awareness that I was expected to feel something and did not. My name is Mara Ellison. I was 32 years old the day I walked out of prison after 6 years for a crime I did not commit. The winter air hit my face like a slap, sharp, unforgiving. It cut straight through the thin coat hanging on my shoulders like it belonged to someone else. People talk about freedom like it is a door you walk through and suddenly you can breathe again. That is a lie. All I felt was weight, the kind that settles deep in your chest and never leaves. I had entered prison as a woman who still believed in explanations and apologies. I left as someone who no longer trusted her own heartbeat. There was no family waiting at the gate, no familiar voice calling my name, no arms opening for me. Only a black luxury car parked neatly by the curb, polished, silent, out of place. Daniel Ellison was not there. The man who once called himself my husband. The man who sat in a courtroom and watched me get sentenced without standing up, without speaking, without looking back. Instead, he sent his assistant, a young man in a tailored coat who avoided my eyes like shame might be contagious. He cleared his throat and said my name carefully as if it might break. Miss Ellison, Mr. Ellison could not come today. He asked me to take you somewhere safe. Safe. I almost laughed. I nodded once and got into the car. As the door closed behind me, the warmth inside felt wrong. Too soft, too clean, like a hotel room built over a grave. The city moved past the window in a blur of glass and steel, people rushing to lives that still belonged to them. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass and understood one thing with absolute clarity. The woman who went into that prison did not walk out. Only her name did. The car did not take me to a shelter or a halfway house. It drove straight into the heart of the city, into a neighborhood where the sidewalks were clean and the buildings never showed their age. We stopped in front of a high-rise overlooking the river, glass, steel, quiet wealth, the kind of place where people never worried about locked doors. The assistant led me inside without speaking. The lobby smelled like fresh flowers and expensive polish. The elevator rose in silence. Each floor felt like another reminder that I no longer belonged in this world. When the doors opened, I stepped into a penthouse that looked untouched. White walls, soft lighting. Furniture chosen by someone who believed comfort could erase memory. The assistant set my worn duffel bag beside a leather sofa. Then he pulled an envelope and a set of keys from his coat and placed them on the glass table between us. "This is yours," he said quietly. The apartment. A card with no spending limit. Mr. Ellison said this is his way of making things right. Making things right. I stared at the keys. They reflected the light like small sharp blades. He said he regrets how everything turned out, the assistant continued. He believes the sentence was too harsh. He wants you to live comfortably now. Comfort. As if comfort could undo 6 years of concrete walls and locked doors. As if money could buy back sleep or silence the sounds that never leave your head. I picked up the keys. They were cold and heavy in my palm. The assistant seemed to relax, as if he believed this was over. I looked up at him and spoke slowly, evenly. "Go back and tell Daniel Ellison this for me." He straightened, listening carefully. The woman he married did not survive prison. A dead woman does not need a penthouse. His face drained of color. I set the keys back on the table, picked up my bag, and walked past him toward the door. I did not look back. Some things cannot be paid for. Some debts do not accept money. I did not go far that night, but I went where no one would think to look. I walked, block after block, past bright storefronts and crowded bars, past people laughing into their phones and couples arguing softly on street corners. I stopped at the edge of the river. The water was dark and restless, reflecting broken pieces of the city lights. I opened my hand and looked at the keys and the black card one last time. Symbols of power, of control, of a life that was never really mine. Then I threw them into the water. They disappeared without drama, no splash worth remembering, just gone. I turned and kept walking. Daniel Ellison was sitting in his office when his assistant returned alone. The city lights framed him from behind like a king in his tower. He was calm, certain. In his mind, there were only 2 possible outcomes, gratitude or rage. Either would mean I still belonged to him in some way. but there was no call. Minutes passed, then hours. The silence stretched thin and sharp. When the assistant repeated my words exactly as I had said them, something cracked in Daniel's expression. Not sorrow, not guilt, it was disbelief. I had not argued, I had not begged, I had not taken the bait. I had stepped out of his reach. For the first time since the trial, Daniel Ellison felt something unfamiliar crawl up his spine. Loss of control. He ordered people to look for me, to search shelters, hospitals, streets. He told himself it was concern. It was not. It was fear. Because a woman who walks away without anger is no longer playing the game. And games only work when both sides stay on the board. Daniel Ellison did not sleep that night, or the nights that followed. The absence I left behind grew louder than any accusation. It followed him into meetings and sat across from him at his desk. He told himself he needed answers, that this was responsibility, that this was closure. He ordered his legal team to retrieve every record connected to my incarceration. Medical reports, disciplinary logs, psychological evaluations, files he had never bothered to read when they mattered. The first page made his hands tremble. Bruises documented and dismissed, injuries listed without questions, dates and signatures stacked neatly like excuses. There were reports of an assault in the showers, multiple inmates, no witnesses willing to testify. The case marked unresolved. Then solitary confinement. 30 days. No sunlight, no contact, no conversation. The notes described emotional withdrawal and refusal to speak. Recommended observation, no follow-up. A psychiatric evaluation followed, severe depression, trauma-related symptoms, nightmares, panic responses to touch, selective mutism developing under prolonged stress. Daniel read faster, then slower. There was a line buried deep in the file that stopped him cold. Patient displays no signs of manipulation or fabrication, symptoms consistent with sustained psychological and physical trauma. He dropped the folder onto his desk. For 6 years he had believed I was fragile, overly emotional, dramatic, a woman who could not handle consequences. The files told a different story. I had not broken because I was weak. I had broken because I was left alone in a place designed to erase people, because the one person who could have spoken chose silence. Daniel sat back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. For the first time since the trial, a thought surfaced that made his chest tighten. The woman he sent to prison did not fail him. He failed her. And the cost was not 6 years. It was everything she had been. It took Daniel Ellison 3 weeks to find me. Not because I was hiding well, but because I had fallen so far below the world he knew that he never thought to look there. I was working under a borrowed name at a construction site on the edge of the city, cleaning floors, carrying trash, keeping my head down. My hair was cut short and hidden under a knit cap. My clothes hung loose on a body that no longer filled them. When Daniel saw me, he did not recognize me at first. He noticed the way I moved, careful, guarded, as if every step had to be earned. Then he saw my face. Thinner, older, empty in a way that could not be faked. He called my name. Mara. The sound froze me in place. I did not turn toward him like someone hearing a lover or a husband. I reacted like prey recognizing a hunter. My body tensed, my hands shook, my eyes searched for exits. Daniel stepped closer, his voice breaking as if emotion might bridge the distance between us. "What happened to you?" he asked. I did not answer. He reached out and grabbed my wrist. His touch was not violent, it did not need to be. My breath caught in my throat as memories surged up without warning. Locked doors, hands holding me down, voices laughing. I pulled back hard and nearly fell. The crowd stared. The workers whispered. Daniel stood there stunned, finally seeing what the files could not fully explain. I was not angry. I was afraid of him. That was the moment Daniel Ellison understood something he had never prepared for. Love does not survive fear. And whatever I felt for him once had been replaced by something colder and far more final. Recognition without connection. A stranger standing in front of another stranger. Bound only by the wreckage of the past. Daniel did not apologize that day. He did something worse. 2 days after finding me at the construction site, he had me brought to his office. Not by force, but not by choice either. A car waited, a door opened, silence did the rest. He placed a folder in front of me. Inside was a map, coastal land marked in red, zoning approvals, development plans. At the center of it all was a small rectangle labeled with a name I recognized instantly. My grandmother's grave. Daniel spoke calmly, carefully, like a man discussing numbers instead of bones. The land is scheduled for development, he said. Relocation is standard procedure. Old sites are cleared, remains moved, records archived. My hands clenched in my lap. My grandmother was the only family I had left, the only person who ever believed me without proof. I was in prison when she died. I never said goodbye. Daniel leaned forward. There is an alternative, he said. You work for me. 5 years, quietly, no trouble, no attention. In return, the site remains untouched, maintained, protected. He slid another document across the desk, an employment contract, clean, legal, cold. This is not punishment, he added. This is resolution. I looked at him and finally spoke. You are using the dead to control the living. He did not deny it. I understood then that remorse had not changed him. It had only sharpened his need for control. He could not undo the past, so he tried to own the present. I signed the contract. Not because I forgave him. Not because I needed his protection. But because some graves must remain undisturbed. Some debts are paid not with pride but with silence. As I put the pen down, I knew one thing with certainty. This was not freedom. It was a different kind of prison. And I had just walked into it willingly. Daniel moved me into his house that same week. It sat on a quiet hill surrounded by trees old enough to remember better people. The kind of place designed to impress from a distance and isolate up close. There were no locked doors, no bars on the windows, and yet I felt more confined than I ever had behind steel. A housekeeper showed me to a bedroom larger than my entire prison cell block, white sheets, soft carpet, a balcony overlooking a manicured garden. She spoke gently, as if kindness could be absorbed through the air. When the door closed behind her, I did not touch the bed. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, knees drawn to my chest, listening for sounds that never came. Silence pressed in from every corner, heavy, suspicious. At work, Daniel assigned me to the archive department, a basement room filled with old files and dust. No windows, few visitors, exactly what he wanted, hidden, contained. People noticed me anyway. They whispered when I passed, about my past, about my body, about why the boss had brought someone like me back into his world. I did not respond. When spoken to, I nodded or shook my head. When questioned, I wrote answers on scraps of paper. Slowly, they stopped asking. They started calling me the mute? I did not correct them. Silence had kept me alive before. It required no explanation, no trust, no risk. Every day I worked until my hands ached. I carried boxes heavier than I should have. The pain grounded me. It reminded me I still existed. Daniel noticed and tried to stop me. I ignored him. Because pity felt worse than punishment. And I had learned this the hard way. When the world has already taken everything from you, silence becomes the last thing you own. Daniel was not the only one who noticed my presence in his world. Lauren Pierce noticed too. She was his fiancée, polished, confident, a woman who moved through rooms like she already owned them. She came to the office one afternoon without warning, heels echoing sharply down the basement corridor like a challenge. She looked at the room, the dust, the shelves. Then she looked at me. So this is her, she said lightly, the ghost from before. I did not answer. I kept sorting papers on the floor, my fingers stained with ink and dust. My silence irritated her. I could feel it. She stepped closer, holding a cup of coffee. As she passed me, she tilted it just enough. The hot liquid spilled down my arm, soaking into old scars that never fully healed. She gasped theatrically. Oh no, I am so clumsy. The burn was sharp, immediate. My body flinched on instinct, but I made no sound. I did not look at her. I took a rag and knelt down, wiping the coffee from the floor near her shoes. That was when her smile faded. She had wanted tears, anger, anything that proved she still mattered to me. Instead, I treated her like she did not exist. Later that week, Daniel's mother came. She did not pretend kindness. She pointed at me and shouted words I had heard before. Parasite, curse, mistake. She raised her hand to strike me. I picked up a box cutter from the table. Slowly I pressed the blade against my own throat, just enough to draw a thin line of blood. The room went silent. Her face drained of color, not because she feared me, because she feared witnessing a death. I did not threaten her. I did not speak. I simply showed her the truth. I was no longer afraid of losing my life. And people who are not afraid of death cannot be controlled. She left without another word. I cleaned the blood from my neck and returned to my work. Some battles are won without a single scream. Some power is found only when there is nothing left to take. The invitation arrived sealed in thick cream paper, a formal company gala, mandatory attendance. Daniel did not ask if I wanted to go, he assumed obedience. A dress was delivered to my office that afternoon. Dark green. Open back. Elegant in a way meant to be admired. I stared at it for a long time before touching the fabric. It was not made for a body like mine. In the locker room I changed slowly. When I faced the mirror my breath caught. My back told a story I never spoke out loud. Scars crossed my skin in uneven patterns, thick, raised, some pale, some dark, marks left by batons, by boots, by nights when pain was the only language spoken. No makeup could hide them, no fabric could soften their truth. I slipped on the dress anyway. When Daniel saw me, he stopped mid-step, his eyes fixed on my reflection. The color drained from his face as understanding settled in. This was not something written in a report, this was proof. He reached out without thinking. The moment his fingers brushed my skin, my body reacted before my mind could catch up. Panic surged, my chest tightened, the room spun. I screamed and collapsed against the wall, arms wrapped around my head. Do not touch me. The words tore out of me raw and broken, not meant for him, meant for ghosts. Daniel froze, his hand dropped to his side. In that moment the illusion shattered. He could no longer pretend remorse was enough. He could no longer imagine repair. The damage was not emotional alone. It was written into flesh. And it would never fade. The truth did not come gently, it never does. I heard her voice before I saw her, smooth, confident, familiar in the worst way. Natalie Reed stood in the hallway outside the ballroom restroom, dressed in red like victory had always belonged to her. She smiled when she saw me. So you are still here, she said. I thought prison would finish you. I tried to walk past her. She stepped in front of me. Lowering her voice, she leaned closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Sweet and artificial. Do you want to know something funny, she whispered. I was never pregnant. The words did not register at first. She continued calmly. The blood, the hospital, the papers, all fake, a little acting, a little money. That is all it took. My ears rang. The world narrowed to the space between us. 6 years. 6 years of cages and nights without sleep. 6 years of bruises and silence. 6 years stolen for a lie told with a smile. I did not scream. I did not hit her. Something inside me collapsed instead. My hands began to shake, my vision blurred. The walls felt too close, too white, too clean. Natalie stepped back, suddenly uneasy. You look awful, she said. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, pale, hollow, a stranger looking back. The pressure inside my chest became unbearable. I clawed at my own skin as if tearing it might let the pain escape. Nails dug in, blood surfaced, I felt nothing. Then the mirror cracked. I remember falling, glass, voices, hands grabbing at me. Someone shouted my name. But it was too late. The lie had already done its final damage. It had not just taken my freedom. It had taken my mind with it. I woke up in a white room that smelled like disinfectant and distance. My wrists were restrained. Not because I was dangerous to others, but because I was dangerous to myself. Daniel stood near the window when I opened my eyes. He looked older, smaller, like something essential had finally broken inside him. I learned later what happened after I collapsed. Daniel did not confront Natalie with rage. He did not shout or threaten. He did something colder. He investigated. Every record, every signature, every payment. The doctor who had signed the report, the falsified images, the money trails buried under shell companies. It unraveled quickly once someone with power decided to look. Natalie was arrested quietly, no dramatic headlines, just handcuffs and doors closing. Daniel came to my bedside that night. "She is paying for it," he said softly. "It is over." He waited for a reaction. Anger, relief, satisfaction? I felt none of it. Justice did not give me back 6 years. It did not erase the scars on my body or the ones inside my head. It did not bring my grandmother back. It did not return the woman I used to be. Natalie losing everything felt distant, abstract, like reading about a stranger in a newspaper. Daniel seemed confused by my silence. I understood something then that he did not. Revenge promises healing, but it only delivers balance, and balance is not the same as peace. What was taken from me could not be reclaimed by watching someone else fall. The past does not reset simply because the truth finally shows up. I asked to leave on a night when the house was quiet enough to hear my own breathing. Daniel was sitting across from me at the kitchen table, papers spread out, plans, appointments, doctors, all the things he believed could still fix this. I watched him talk and realized something with painful clarity. Staying here would destroy us both. "Let me go," I said. He froze. "You are not safe alone," he replied. "You need help. You need time." I looked at him steadily. "You are not helping me heal. You are helping yourself feel less guilty." The words landed harder than anger ever could. I told him the truth. Every night in this house pulled me back into the past. Every kind gesture felt like a reminder of what came too late. His presence was not comfort, it was a trigger. "If you want to make amends," I said, "stop holding me here like proof of your regret." He was silent for a long time. Then he stood and walked to the safe. He brought back a bank card and a passbook and placed them in front of me. "Take this," he said. "It is not charity. It is the money from your grandmother's land. It belongs to you." I hesitated. "If you do not take it," he added, "I will not let you leave." I understood then that this was the last control he would try to keep. "Fine," I said, "I will take it." Not as forgiveness. As payment for 6 years of my life. That night I cooked a simple meal, eggs, rice, vegetables, the kind of food we once ate when love was still real. He ate quietly, tears falling into his plate. "You have forgiven me, haven't you?" he asked. I did not answer. Some questions do not deserve comfort. Some endings do not need words. I left before dawn. The house was still asleep when I packed a single canvas bag. I did not take the clothes Daniel bought or the jewelry he insisted I wear. I took only what I could carry without memory weighing it down. When I stepped outside, the air felt different, lighter, like the world was not watching me anymore. I did not take a train or a plane. I walked until the road widened and waited until a truck slowed down. I gave a name that was not mine and followed the road south until the city disappeared behind mountains. I became Grace Nolan. In a small town tucked into the hills, I rented a one-room cabin on a working farm. No questions, no past, just work. I rose before sunrise and labored until my muscles burned. My hands blistered and hardened. The pain was honest. It belonged to the present. People did not stare here. They judged you by whether you showed up, by whether you worked, by whether you were kind when it counted. One evening I found a thin, abandoned dog shivering near the fence line. I fed him and he stayed. I named him Ash. For the first time in years I slept through the night. The nightmares did not vanish, they softened, like scars that ache only when the weather changes. I was not healed. But I was no longer trapped. The woman called Mara Ellison still existed somewhere in me. But Grace Nolan was learning how to breathe. And for the first time since prison, that was enough. 2 years passed before Daniel found me again. Not because he stopped looking, because I stopped leaving traces. He came to the town on business, or so he told himself, a coincidence wrapped in denial. He saw me at the farmer's market before I saw him, older, thinner, sun on my face, dirt under my nails, alive in a quiet way that did not ask for permission. He did not call my name. He followed at a distance and watched. I was sitting on the porch of my cabin mending a torn shirt. Ash slept at my feet. A small child from the neighboring farm ran up and climbed into my lap, calling me Mama Grace. I laughed without thinking. The sound surprised even me. Daniel stood behind a tree at the edge of the property and felt his chest tighten. That smile was not meant for him. It was not born from forgiveness or effort or sacrifice. It existed because he was not part of this life. He wanted to step forward, to apologize again, to explain, to ask for something. Anything. He did none of it. At dawn he placed a small potted wildflower on my doorstep, the kind I used to love. Then he walked away without knocking. When I found it later, I knew he had been there. And I knew something else. He had finally learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes love is not staying. Sometimes love is leaving quietly and never asking to be remembered. I did not chase after him. When I opened the door that morning, the wildflower stood alone in the soft light. The road beyond my cabin was empty. Only faint footprints in the dirt showed that someone had been there and chosen to leave. I brought the flower inside and placed it on the windowsill. That was all. I did not forgive Daniel Ellison. Some wounds are not meant to be erased. Forgiveness is not a duty, and it is not proof of strength. It is a choice, and some choices are not owed. But I no longer hated him. Hatred is heavy. It keeps you tied to the very thing that destroyed you. Letting it go was not mercy for him. It was survival for me. The revenge everyone expects is loud. Punishment. Public ruin. Watching someone fall the way you fell. But real revenge is quieter. It is waking up without fear. It is building a life that does not revolve around the person who broke you. It is finding peace in a place they can never reach. Somewhere far away, Daniel returned to his world of glass and power. He would live with what he had done. That was his sentence. I stayed where the air was clean and the nights were still. I made tea and watched the clouds move across the mountains. Ash slept nearby. Tomorrow there would be work. Simple, honest work. This is not a story about forgiveness. It is a story about choosing yourself when the world tells you to stay broken. If this story spoke to you, take a moment to reflect, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and tell us in the comments. What would you choose?